This hourly segment is brought to you by Real Estate Revealed with Randy Barcella, Sunday mornings starting at 8.
Tickets for Freedom Summit Chicago are on sale now at freedomsummitchicago.com. That's freedomsummitchicago.com.
Good morning, Dan and Amy. These cases are going to keep popping up around the country, as they have been. Masterpiece Cake Shop, Jack Phillips wins at the Supreme Court level the right, per his religious beliefs, to not participate in a religious or in a ceremony he doesn't want to participate in that runs afoul of his religious beliefs. He didn't want to make a cake for a gay wedding. He was happy to serve the gay customers with his baked goods for other purposes, but not for what he considers a sacred ceremony.
And he was pleasant to everyone. He was not mean.
Marlon Stutzman, not Marlon Stutzman, he was a congressman from Indiana. Barronelle Stutzman, florist, Pacific Northwest, same deal. Now we have a case out of Kentucky, T-shirt company, a T-shirt company in Lexington that refused to make T-shirts for the Gay Pride Festival. Hands On Originals is the name of the company, and they refused the order, again citing religious beliefs. Happy to make T-shirts for anything else, but I can't do something that runs afoul of my belief system, my faith, religious freedom. Well, as you would suspect, this has become a source of litigation, and you've got civil rights commissions at the municipal level inveighing on the topic, and parties that are appealing based on the adjudication at lower levels. And that provides an opportunity for the Alliance for Defending Freedom to represent another individual who's having their religious freedom tested. For more on the topic, we're pleased to be joined by Jim Campbell, who's Senior Counsel with the Alliance for Defending Freedom. Jim, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
So the case right now, just sort of give us the summary of what happened. Is this another instance where you had somebody like sort of purposely go to this company for their T-shirts to make a point and to unleash litigation on the topic?
Yeah, we're not sure exactly why this customer went to this business, but what we do know is our client is Hands On Originals, and the owner is Blaine Adamson, and they have a pretty simple policy there. And you talked about it at the outset. They'll work with anyone. They'll serve anyone. They'll print shirts for anyone. But what they can't do is print shirts with messages that violate their religious beliefs. And so in 2012, somebody asked them to print shirts, as you said, promoting a Pride Festival. They politely declined, but said, "Hey, listen, we'll do our best to help you as far as our conscience will allow. We'll connect you to another printer, and they'll do the work for the same price we would have charged." But that wasn't good enough, and they filed a lawsuit against them, and then 7 years later, we're still tied up in the court system.
What did they want printed on the T-shirt? Was it LGBTQ, or was there some slogan that they wanted?
Yeah, it was. It was a rainbow logo with the words Lexington Pride Festival. And so our client, once he found out what the order was about, then he said, "Well, what do you want printed on the shirt?" Because again, for him, it always comes down to the message. And once that logo and the words were described to him, he just determined that would express a message about sexuality and sexual relationships that was inconsistent with his faith. So that's why he politely declined.
And so, of course, from the secular perspective, you'll get the argument that other similarly situated, different businesses, but essentially the same dynamic here. Why don't you just make the T-shirts? What's the big deal?
Yeah. So for our client, he believes, reasonably so, that everything he prints expresses a message, and that he's accountable to God for that. So everything that comes off his printing press is speaking a message when it does that, and he believes that God has called him to honor him in the work that he does. So he's determined that that's just not something he can do. And one of the most interesting facts in the whole case is that our client has actually printed shirts for a lesbian musician who performed at the very 2012 Pride Festival that he was asked to print shirts promoting. So again, it just shows very clearly that he's happy to work with everyone. He's happy to work with people who identify as gay and lesbian. He just can't print particular messages.
So, for example, if an atheist walked in and said, I want you to print a T-shirt that says F God, he probably wouldn't print that either.
Yes. Whereas if that same customer walked in and asked for a shirt that said,
I love Jesus.
local softball league, he would have been glad to print it. So it all comes down to the message. It doesn't matter who the person is.
And
Well, what kind of pushback has he gotten, if any, from the community? Is his business suffered? Because you said this has been going on since 2012.
Yeah, so initially it did. When this first came out in 2012, there was a lot of opposition. There were organized boycotts. The mayor of the town came out against him and said some harsh things in the media. But so initially they lost a number of big clients. But over time, particularly as we've won the case at every level so far, we won before the state trial court, we won before the state court of appeals, and both of those courts said, listen, this business isn't discriminating against anyone because of who they are. They're just simply picking and choosing messages, which is within their constitutional right to do. So they're not even violating the law, is what the courts are saying. And once the community sort of started to understand that, I think business has leveled out and been pretty good.
And so, who is pursuing this at every level of adjudication? So, who continues to appeal these cases, and who is that side being financed by?
It's the local government. The local government will not accept the fact that Blaine Adamson should be free to live and work consistent with his religious beliefs. It is adamant that he must print messages that conflict with his religious beliefs, and so they keep appealing this case at every level. And we just argued it last week before the Kentucky Supreme Court, and we're now hopeful that the court will agree with the two other courts that reviewed the case. But you never know. You never know how the outcome will shake out. But we do believe firmly that the First Amendment protects Blaine's right to live and work consistent with his religious beliefs and to decline to print things that would violate his faith.
And I assume you're hearing from local officials something akin to this. Hey, look, I believe in religious liberty and religious freedom. I respect people and their religious beliefs. And they won't say what so that's the predicate. But what they're really saying is, I respect your religious beliefs to a certain extent, but when I say you should make an exception and not take them seriously, then that's when you should do it.
That's right. It's sort of the whole, I respect your freedom to believe what you want to believe, but I don't respect your freedom to actually live by those beliefs.
Right. Yes.
And that, of course, is not, thankfully, is not what the First Amendment protects us from. The First Amendment protects not only our freedom of speech, so in this case, he can decline messages that would violate his faith, but it also protects our freedom to exercise our beliefs, which means the freedom to live them out.
How's your client doing? I mean, how's his mental state of mind? How's his, how's he handling all this? Because 7 years is a long time.
Yeah, it's tough. Certainly, there's no denying that. There are good days, there are bad days. It's a long process. He doesn't like the limelight. He's not that type of person. He just likes to make shirts, design shirts, print shirts, help his customers promote their messages. He likes to hang out with his family, and this is all just a huge distraction for him. He didn't want this, but as he said time and time again, he would make the same decision every time because he felt like he had no choice but to honor God as he felt God was calling him to handle the situation. And so, he's willing to do it again, but it's a difficult process.
Some people may be confused by cases like this that are still pending at the state level when you have the Jack Phillips Masterpiece Cake Shop decision from the Supreme Court. Why is that not applicable and prevent litigation like this?
Yeah, so it's applicable in part, and there are aspects of it that are helpful to our client in this case. But it's slightly different in certain aspects, and so the courts are nevertheless going through the process and and checking to ensure, how do they feel about how Masterpiece applies and things like that. So yeah, it's Masterpiece provides help, but it doesn't provide the clear guidance that would settle this case once and for all. And so we're hopeful that we'll still get the win, because one of the things that we try to remind people about this case is that particularly the freedom of speech that we're arguing for this case, is for everyone. So while in this case it would ensure that Blaine isn't forced to print messages that violate his religious beliefs, it would also ensure that for example, a lesbian print shop owner couldn't be forced by a religious group to print messages opposing same-sex marriage, or something that printer believes in very deeply. So this freedom is as good for people who identify as liberal as it is for people who consider themselves to be conservative.
So, but until the Supreme Court speaks more comprehensively on the topic, we can expect more cases like this bubbling up from the states.
I think that's true, yes, unfortunately.
He is Jim Campbell, Senior Counsel with the Alliance for Defending Freedom.